Hey bookworms, today we are diving deep into the fascinating worlds of literary schools. We will begin by exploring the Renaissance, a pivotal era that witnessed a revival of classical learning and the blossoming of the artistic expressions. We will analyze key features of Renaissance literature, including its focus on humanism and also including emergence of the new literary forms and embrace of classical influences. I'm Aryan Rasoulipour, and let me talk about this area. But before talking about this significant period of history of humankind and its influences on literature and art, we should ought to briefly look to some of the most remarkable literary schools. Let me talk about them briefly, and then we should move to Renaissance period. Okay, now I want to talk about some literary schools in chronological order. Firstly, we should start with early period by Renaissance that started in 15th century beginning and ended in 17th century. It started in 14th century and then ended in 17th century. It's started and spread throughout the Europe gradually and emphasizes on humanism, classical learning, and a spirit of the exploration is increased in that period. Then we shifted to and moved to Baroque period that characterized by elaborate ornamentation, extended metaphors, and focus on the scenes. And the Baroque period started in 17th century, early 17th century, about 1600 year, and ended in 1715 year. And then in the 1660 year, at the period of that time that we had a great fire of London, and also we had Shakespeare's some works like Don Quixote and in Spain, and we had some neoclassical movement. Yes, it's time of neoclassicism through inspirational the classical Greek and it was a restoration to classical movement of Greek and Roman literature, emphasizes reason and order and is restrained. Therefore, we can consider that time as an age of reason and age of Augustine. And then we should move to 19th century's movement by the Romanticism, the next literary schools that followed by the neoclassicism. It's valued emotional, and it's very emotionally valued. Imagination and individual experiences was highly remarkable in that period, and this period started in 1785 year and ended in 1832. And then we should shift in 1830 at the beginning of the period of Victorian period, or coming the Queen Victoria to the throne, as a realism literary schools. Focus on accurate representation of everyday life and social issues in the time of the Charles Dickens and other most famous English writers' book, and in the rest of the parts of the world like France, we had in that time Victor Hugo and so on. And then we should push forward to naturalism that started in 1880 and ended in 1940, emphasizes on influence of heredity and environment on human behavior. And also we should finally, at the last and not least important literary school of 19th century, push forward to symbolism that rooted and originated in France and explored the inner world, emotions, and idealism through the use of symbols and suggestive imagery, and then shifted to Germany and other rest of the part of Europe like United Kingdom and so on. And then we started 20th century by modernism that challenged traditional forms of conventions, experimenting with the new techniques and exploring the complexities of modern world. Okay? Surrealism. Surrealism started in 1920 decade and then ended in 1940. It was the peak of the surrealism movement and emphasized of power, the unconscious mind, and sought to explore the irrational. And postmodernism started in 1916 decades and continued to produce and generate its works, and it is on its period and its era, and it is on the climax right now until the present nowadays times, and characterized by rejection of grand narrative, playful approach and to language, and blending of high and low culture. And we had some other notable movements in that time, like transcendentalism that started in 1830 and ended in 1860 as a similar time to Victorian and Realism period, quite similar and collided to it, and an American philosophy called the literary movement, and that emphasized an intuitional and importance of nature. It was transcendentalism. And then we had Beat generation that started in 1950th century decade to one decade later, 1950 to 1960, as a countercultural movement that collaborated spontaneously and spontaneity, non-formality, and exploration and consciousness. And then we have magic realism in some parts of, especially in Latin America and Southern America, a literary genre that blends realistic elements with fantastical and fantastical and magical ones and rules. And one of the famous writers in this genre is Gabriel Garcia Marquez Borges, and so on. And we had finally post-colonialism that started in 1950s decade and continued to right now. Both post-colonialism and magic realism are continued right now, and they are vivid genre right now. But post-colonialism is a critical theory that examines the culture and political legacy of colonialization and colonialism in the other word. This list is not exhaustive, but it provides a general overview of some of the most important schools and lit movements throughout the history. Today I want to talk about the Renaissance period of literature, and then in the further videos we should shift to other literary genres. Okay, Renaissance period was period of immense intercultural and cultural rebirth, and its impact on literature was profound. Here are some key features that characterize Renaissance influence. Okay, focus on human potential. Renaissance literature collaborated human potential, individuality, and power of reason. It shifted away from strict and rigid religious focus on medieval period and emphasizes on importance of human experience and achievement. Okay, and then we have second elements of that period as a Renaissance period was classical influence, revival of Greek and Roman literature. As I mentioned before, the Renaissance saw a renewed interest in works of ancient Greeks and Roman writers. Scholars studied the classical texts, and Renaissance authors drew inspiration through their themes, styles, and literary forms. And then individualism was the other aspects of the Renaissance period. Emphasizes on personal expression. Renaissance literature reflects growing emphasis on individual expressions and unique perspective, and authors begin to explore their own emotions doubts, and experience with greater depth and honesty. And exploration and discovery was very gradually increased and bumped in that period. A sprite of adventure, the Renaissance was time of exploration and discovery, okay, both geographically and intellectually. The spirit of adventures reflected in Renaissance literature, which often featured themes of travel, exploration, and something like that. That's all unknown for them and anonymously for that peoples of that times. And new literary forms emerged in that time, like sonnets, essays, and dramas. The Renaissance saw the rise of new literary forms and sonnets, essays, and dramas, as I told you before, and these forms allowed for the greater flexibility and expression of traditional medieval forms. As you should I mention here, the medieval literature was very, how can I tell you, rigid as movement. It couldn't have any other genre and forms, and it was a simple and unified forms. And the secular themes was other aspects of the Renaissance period that focus on human life and love. While religious theme will still present in Renaissance literature, that was growing focus of secular themes such as love, friendship, and pursuit of happiness. That was elements of secular themes in Renaissance period. And we finally had realism and naturalism in that period that emphasizes on human experience. Okay, Renaissance literature also showed a growing interest in realism and naturalism. Authors sought to depict human experience and the natural world and the greater accuracy and detail. These features combine to create a rich and diverse body of literature that continues to be studied and admired today. The Renaissance led to foundation of many of the literary trends that would follow in these centuries to come. And that's it. That's it. Thank you for attending on my YouTube channel. Till next time, goodbye, good luck. Please don't forget to like my video and subscribe my channel. Farewell, good luck, and goodbye.